So good afternoon and a warm welcome to everybody here at Red Bull Ring in Austria. And as per normal, I have got Stephen Kernick with me here in the booth to co-commentate with me on round number 3 of the Refined Racing Ferrari Challenge Series. Welcome, Stephen. And yeah, we're up on the formation lap. Race is about to get underway here.
Absolutely incredible to be back, and you can feel the tension. The drivers know this is the second last race of the season. Everything on the line. Luke Lucchesi currently in first place, with Steven Vessels lining up on second place. And they were only in qualifying 0.2 of a second difference between them, and this is all or nothing. Turn 1 is going to be the trickiest part, as they've got to charge up, and it is a sharp, blind bend. And we're waiting for the drivers to go, and it looks like the race is on. Lucchesi off to a fantastic start. Vessels getting squeezed out, though. Ferrari going and pushing, trying to get past, and little bit you can see guys trying 4 wide, bit of contact. That looks like it's between Daniel Rowe and Yasamai. Oh, Yasamai going into the wall, and drivers having to take quick avoidance of the Ferrari. So definitely not the start we want to see, but 4 wide into the corner does make it rather tricky. As we jump a little bit further back, you can see Cameron Null. He's trying to get going and recently got into iRacing, now starting to try and catch up to his teammates, the likes of Janneman Price and also Matt Densham further ahead. Absolutely brilliant to see the guys really working hard. And I mean, let's talk about it. Red Bull Ring is 4.3 kilometers long, and these drivers have to think. They have got 40 minutes of racing. How are they going to utilize their tires? How are they going to utilize the fuel and push themselves to the front? And a battle like this, with Daniel Rose trying to make up a bit of ground after being so far in the front, lands up with a bit of contact, now has to try and make his way through. So difficult times early on in the race, but every single one of these drivers pushing it to the limit as they go forward.
Yeah, and I did notice a few of the top drivers, unfortunately, also had some poor qualifyings, putting them a little bit of out of position from their normal starting positions up at the I would say the sharp end of the grid. The likes of Johan Grobler and and Daniel Rowe starting quite far down on the in terms of the grid. So yeah, them having to now work themselves through the slower drivers, obviously creating quite a bit of interesting racing and exciting racing actually. So let's see how this transpires.
Well, Tristan Norbringer also looking to try and make his way up through. Cameron Null getting a little bit of assistance up the hill by the Hybrid Academy team, hard onto the brakes, and having to really lift off. And that's one thing, bump drafting. Give that person an extra 2-3 kilometers an hour into the braking corner. They have to move their brake marker way back than they think. So you can either force him into a mistake or force him to go out wide. So clever thinking there, and putting a lot of faith in the other drivers. Tristan Norbringer, though, under huge amount of pressure. He's trying to really get up a bit sideways action, though, and
someone
into
getting a bit out of shape there. Yeah.
So definitely not what they want to do. But Ryan Ottens,
looked like Stefan Vessels that got a bit out of shape there. Stefan, one of our top contenders in the Ferrari Challenge League, getting a bit out of shape there in that corner.
Well, if you think about it, now he's testing out whether he can handbrake turn it, but his right at the back of the field, so he has to try and fight his way back up to the top to go and provide some assistance to his teammate, who is currently charging after Gerber, but has got Ryan Ottens all over the back of him. So this is where it gets a little bit technical. And don't forget, Paul Gerber, right there in 5th place, is not giving up. So this is where the challenge is going to be. Red Bull, very unforgiving in its off track. So the guys have to choose where they're going to go and how they're going to be able to do it.
Absolutely. Nice and warm here today at Red Bull Ring. I think track temperature was running at about 40 degrees Celsius. So nice and sunny, but obviously that will have some impact on tire degradation as well with the high temperatures on the track. A little bit of argy-bargy there going on through the hairpin there. Gives me some flashbacks of Verstappen and Charles Leclerc going through that corner there.
That's it. And on the brakes late, Tristan trying to make his way through, but it looks like Ryan Ottens was just able to brake a fraction later and retake his position. So the guys really testing the limits, and I think at that point they were looking at each other's through each other at the windows and saying, you brake now, you brake now, you brake now, and it gets a little bit tense at that situation. I mean, So you've been in this where you side by side with a guy going into a corner and it's all or nothing. You're trying to guess where they are going to break. How late can you break, especially into this corner? This is the second last bend. You can lose out a lot of time. Off tracks are very, very easy, and breaking into the final corner into a downhill dip. And it looks like Tristan Norbringer just able to keep ahead of Ryan Ottens, but that has allowed Paul Gerber to get into the clutches. He's now going and pulling himself up the hill, staying in the tow, being very, very consistent, watching the battle ahead, and now has his opportunity to sling past Ryan Ottens. Two sister teams now having a proper fight. We've seen this all season where it's Team Tryhard and Team Hybrid Academy duking it out. You could see, wow,
Ryan having to take some avoiding action
going on the outside.
Yeah, I think he was a bit late on the brakes then. Got caught a little bit by watching the rear view mirrors there. Obviously, having to take some avoiding action there. It seemed to avoid Tristan in front of him. Again, allowing Paul to get a bit closer. So I can see a nice little battle developing here between these three drivers.
Now you have to consider how much are they utilizing the tires, braking that little bit later. Are they going and just wearing down those fronts just a fraction more? Are they going to start picking up understeer later into the race? And this is where it all starts to become a bit of a mind game. As we go further back, Nicholas Manuel, who's having a great bit of fun. He's in front of Douw Gerber at this point, trying to catch up to Matt Densham. Nicholas Manuel moving from the ACC World, Assetto Corsa Competizione, into iRacing, and is having a great bit of fun, slowly getting better and better. Douw Gerber, though, right on the tail, trying to keep that consistent pace, and right behind him, he's got Andrew Barber chasing him down into the braking zone. Douw trying to go that fraction bit later. You can see how a little bit wider through the corner, trying to straight line it a bit more over the dirt patch, and now onto the main straight, really just trying to keep into the tow. And the slipstream in these cars are unbelievable. We saw it in the last race where it could make or break you. And right here, we're at Red Bull Ring. You've got majority of straights. It's all about getting that slipstream, getting the best drive, and pull yourself along.
I saw Nicholas Manuel having a bit of a twitch there, coming out of T1, which allows Douw Gerber to really get nice and close, going for the move here into the hairpin, and it seems like he's been able to make that move. However, Manuel fighting back hard, and I think it will be a dice down to that next corner at the bottom. No DRS here like in Formula 1, so a dead heat going into the downhill left-hander here. Let's see how this pans out for them.
Yep, that's it. Into turn 4, hard on the brakes, just getting in front, but it looks like Andrew Barber out of nowhere, though, causing a little bit of collision. Douw, unfortunately, getting the rough situation of that. Nicholas Manuel just keeping the throttle in. But one person there who was more than happy to start making up a position, and that is Carlos, who just started sending it through. He saw it all going on and started trying to capitalize on the situation. So definitely bumping and barging, something we didn't want to see, but it looked like Andrew Barber just braking way too late, carrying too much speed, tried avoiding, but unfortunately causing a collision and going into it. So I think Stuart's going to have to keep an eye on that. And at the moment, you can see Nicholas Manuel trying to catch up, Andrew Barber utilizing all the circuit, but how much damage have both those Ferraris sustained after that collision?
And I see the guys going quite wide. They're into the last two turns of the track, using pretty much the whole runoff area there, which will definitely incur some penalties. Obviously, with iRacing, if you exceed track limits, you get awarded a little penalty every time. And the league effectively works on the following system where after 17 incidents being logged by the game, and another incident there, unfortunately, if you have 17 incidents, that will force you to do a drive-through, and at 25 incidents, you will be disqualified from the race. And obviously, little incidents like that between Barber and Manuel again there, every time you have a collision like that, the driver bumping you as well as the driver being bumped will incur 4 penalty points. And this is to, kind of ensure that we have some clean racing. I think that's, the whole thing around iRacing is to try and make it as realistic as possible and to encourage clean driving.
Well, this is it. You can be fast, you can be furious, and you can have some great racing, but you also got to be mindful of what you're going to do. And a drive-through is definitely not one that you're going to go and pick up a nice happy meal on the side. I saw Douw Gerber in the pits, obviously sustaining a little bit of damage, while his teammate pushing hard on the back of Ryan Otten's. Paul Gerber really looking to try and make a pass at this point, doing everything possible, getting very, very close, under braking, having to just move back. And it looks like Douw Gerber is back with, that looks to be Stephen Cakebread a bit further back, trying to also make up a bit of ground. Matt Densham right behind him, though, and he's trying everything possible to catch up to Stephen Cakebread.
And Douw a bit slow there into the hairpin. Matt having to get onto the brakes very, very hard there. Douw obviously out of position now at the moment, so he's effectively a back marker there. And we'll most likely will have to let these drivers go through at some point if they are quicker than him.
Oh,
there we go.
Moving
There's
offline, just allowing the guys to get by. So that's very well done, and also a bit of knowledge there, trying to figure out, we've got the rule of they're only allowed doing 3 corners, and then they have to go and move out the way. So definitely a thing to keep an eye out for. Then you got the likes of Matt Densham. He's pushing onto the back of Stephen Cakebread at the moment. Stephen going and racing on the international scene, representing South Africa, same as Douw. Now having to duke it out with Matt Densham, who's from Monday Night Racing, trying his hand into iRacing. And so far, it's been a bit of a tricky one, and how he's moved over. Then we go to Artie Knuckle. He's starting to open up a bit of a gap to Jeff Hancock's as we head back to the action. Matt Densham really pushing hard, losing out a lot of time. So he seems like the final 2 bends, he just hasn't got it worked out. And that's allowing Stephen Cakebread to move away. But also Douw Gerber now, seeing the guys in front of him, he's starting to catch up. He's now, the challenge comes in. Do I pass these guys? Do I get around them and try push away from it? Or do I let them fight it out? A lot of thinking to go on as the race continues, with only 25 minutes left of the race, well, just over 25 minutes left of the race. Anything can happen. And at this point, people are going to start trying to figure out their pit stops. And that's where the strategy changes. You can make it or break it in the pits, as we know.
Bigger battle here between Stephen Cakebread and Matt Densham going on. Douw Gerber just lurking there in the back, I guess, like you say, just thinking, kick back, finish the race, not to try and pass these guys and, get more damage to the car again. Obviously, Douw would have used his fast repair now already, so any additional damage that he incurs now would incur some time in the pits. So probably just hanging back there and letting these guys have their little fight. Sooner or later, these guys will all have to pit anyway. So hopefully, Douw can make up some positions during the pit stop phases.
That's it. You can see Matt Densham cutting the corner, must be getting a 1x there. It's starting to rack up. Stephen Cakebread getting a little bit sideways as he moves his way around the final corner on to the main straight. Matt does take a look up on the inside, opts not to take the dive as it's just a little bit too far. Blind corner going up. Not quite sure whether it's a good move. You can understeer severely into your competitor, or you can lose it quite badly as you've got a massive sausage curb on the side. Let's be honest, for South African, it's a Boerewors curb right there that can send your car absolutely flying. Paul Gerber, though, starting to drop back. And you see Douw Gerber, though, starting to catch up onto the toe. So while the guys are busy battling it out, they losing time. Douw's catching up, and right behind them is Carlos, who's slowly trying to draw them in. He's 4.9 seconds, but it's been coming down gradually, seeing that we've got the likes of Stephen Cakebread and Matt Densham constantly pushing each other and slowing each other up severely during the course of the race. And this is the type of actions you got to realize. Do you want to work with your competitor, stretch the gap, then go back after it, or are you going to try and constantly fight and slowing you guys down in the process? So definitely things to keep an eye out from every single aspect in terms of racing.
While we're watching these guys battling it out, something with regards to Red Bull Ring is, it's a nice, fast, flowing track. Drivers typically enjoy driving on this track. However, quite a difficult track to actually make a move, passes on. Really just here into T1. And then at the top of the bit, this next straight, which we would refer to as turn 2, which is effectively turn 3 because there's a little kink here. those are really, your only two real, I would say, overtaking opportunities, because turn 4, which is the downhill right-hander, people often think that is a passing, position, but because of the incline of the track there, it's often when you try and make a move there, you tend to understeer into the guy that you're trying to pass. So really just two places on this track which are really good passing opportunities, I think.
Oh, that's it. It's all about trying to find the best way to get round. And also remember, you make the pass, you're leaving yourself wide open for your competitor to fall into the slipstream and pull himself along. So that's also something you got to be very, very careful of. It's not like majority of the circuits, you can get past them around a corner and you go second corner to save you. You have got one corner to make the pass, and you've got a hell of a straight in front of you, which allows them to come back on you just as hard. So definitely a thing to keep an eye out for. Matt Densham, though, trying that inside line repeatedly to do it, and looks like he's going into the pits, but completely misses it by a country mile as well. I don't think the officials on the day are going to like that too much, and I think we're going to have a
that may very
discussion with him.
well that may very well also incur a drive-through penalty by the game. If you transgress that line there into the pit entry, the game tends to give you an automatic drive-through there. But we'll obviously have a look and see. I see Matt is in lap 10, so he did go into the pits, but he may incur an actual penalty for that.
I think he's missed it by a country mile and needing a GPS to find the pits. But as we head back to Paul Gerber, still pushing Ryan Ottens to the limit. Steven Wessels, though, has clawed his way up back to 6th place after landing in the dirt in the early stage of the race. So he's done an incredible job to push himself back up to the top. Now looking to go a little bit further to try and catch up to our top 3, who managed to put a massive gap between themselves. Luke Lucchesi, though, if you take a look on the timing board, is 5.4 seconds ahead of 2nd place, which is an absolute monstrous gap at this point. And he just has to keep it consistent and use his head in the battle. Gerald Ferrari, though, chasing him down. Tristan Norbringer also doing everything he can to try to draw them in as well. So definitely a great bit of fun. Artie Nachel, though, in 8th place. He's pushing on to the back and trying to move his way up. He's going to Johan Krobler at this moment. A little bit too far back. As you can see, a couple of cars already starting to pit. So the sweet spot for, at the moment, they're getting close to the halfway mark. It's going to be about lap 11, lap 12 to make the pass, or make the fuel actually work and try and move your way around. Do you undercut? Do you overcut? This is the questions that are starting to be asked by the teams, talking to the managers, looking at the software, looking at the gauges, and just trying to feel out the cars. And I'm sure at this point, the tires, with a brilliantly hot circuit and how hard they're racing, have gone from the point of grippy to gummy and starting to get very slippery.
Yeah, and I noticed that Yasamai and Andrew Barber obviously retired from the race. I think Yaz retired right at the beginning after the incident he had there in 1, unfortunately. Probably had too much damage on the car there. Andrew Barber, I believe he may have actually got himself a DSQ. And that's obviously based around the fact that if you incur more than 25 incident points, the game will automatically issue you with a disqualification. Unfortunately there for Andrew Barber.
So I got the naughty boy flag as we take a jump back to Gerard Ferrari, getting past Jason Gibson, who just brakes as hard as he can into turn 1, allow the guys to go through. Ryan Otten, so feeling the pressure, and he's trying to make his way around. But Gerald Ferrari making his way through all the back markers, carving his way through at this point. And you can just see, and this is where it starts to be a little bit more interesting for the drivers as they're working around. We can't call them back markers. We can't call them the slower guys, because every single driver here is incredibly talented, and we've got different experience levels at this point. I mean, we've got the fastest guys, Luke Lucchesi, Gerald Ferrari, Tristan Norbringer, Ryan Ottens, Paul Gerber, but you go a little bit further back. You got the likes of Jason Gibson, Stephen Kernick, who have been duking out with one another. Matt Densham seems to be struggling with his car pulling into the pits, might be incurring some damages, but you've got varying levels from pro to am drivers all in one field all duking it out in their own races as well. So it's a bit of a mindful. You are in this hard race as a pro tier, and you've got to look at it and go, right, I'm working my way through these guys. They are in a race of their own. Do I utilize a slipstream, get past them, and not lose too much time? Or do I run the risk of taking a dive, see what happens, and take the risk of damaging the car? Essentially, rolling snake eyes when you roll the dice.
It's a big tight battle there between Paul Gerber and Ryan Ottens going on, as well as Atti Nagel and Johan Grobler here. I think that is Paul entering the pits there. I just saw in the corner of my eye there, Paul Gerber entering the pits now as well.
A little bit of flashing going on. Just saying, how's it? I'm coming through. Just be mindful. And that's absolutely fantastic to see. As we go to Stephen Kernick, he is chasing down Jason Gibson, has to go out wide, allowing Tristan Norberger to come through. And definitely going to have to battle his way. Jason Gibson starting to pull the legs now. He's got the opportunity. And let's see, will he be able to not have to go wide, allow Tristan Norberger through on a straight, and then catch up? As we go back, Paul Gerber just getting out of the pits in front of Arno Kraus, and Steven Wessels really chasing down. Now he's trying to do everything he can to make up a bit of ground. So the pitting has started. And so far, if you take a look on your timing screen on the left-hand side, Paul Gerber pitting on lap 14, really trying to go for that overcut. Steven Wessels did it on lap 12. Arno Kraus has yet to pit. So all the guys just trying to figure out when's the best opportunity. But Paul going a little bit for the late game. 16 minutes left of the race, and he's got Steven Wessels right on the back of him. Let's see if he'll be able to keep it going. I mean, Paul at the moment has got colder tires than the likes of Steven Wessels. Steven can push him out a little bit more, try and force a mistake as they make their way around the circuit.
Absolutely. And I think Ryan Ottens will most likely come into this little battle here as well. I believe he was also obviously taking his pit stop. So he may come into that battle again as well. And this, as we jump here to Tristan de Norberger passing, obviously Jason Gibson as a back marker. Jason actually having a very good race. In the sense, I think he started right at the back of this race and now running 15th.
Yep, having the jump and really moving his way up through the field. And it's definitely a difficult task at this point. He has to try and keep the pace to keep moving forward.
As we see Ryan Ottens coming out of the pits as I predicted. Jumping out just in front of Paul. So maintaining his position. Really good strategy there from Ryan Ottens. But I'm sure Paul will be catching up to him, like you said, on the warmer tires now. Ryan now obviously on the colder tires again.
And you can see Paul trying to do everything he can, holding that inside line. Tristan doing everything he can. Steven Wessels doing everything he can to try and make his way around. But you can be sure Ryan Ottens is looking in his rearview mirror with beads of sweat running down because he knows the two drivers behind him are on a mission to get round the Hybrid Academy driver. So this is going to be a battle right to the end. I think this is going to be one of the sprint races to keep an eye out for at this point, because that's all it is. There's no more pit stops. There's no more mistakes. You cannot do any more, as it will compromise you severely. And that's what Ryan Ottens knows at this point. He needs to try pull that gap. He needs to get away from Paul Gerber and Steven Wessels, who are right on top of each other. Let them duke it out. Let them go and fight it out. Slow each other down, and you start opening a gap. Because, as we saw a little bit earlier, Ryan Ottens and Paul Gerber already nose to tail a little bit on it. I think that's starting to ring a little bit of a bell in their head. And you've also got Steven Wessels, a very, very accomplished sim racer, now trying his best to move up through the field. So absolutely brilliant to see. Different strategies. And I've got to ask, your prediction, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Ryan Ottens, Paul Gerber, or Steven Wessels able to carry the pace until the end of the race?
Yeah, just a bit of shout out there to Steven Wessels also, because he had that spin right at the start of the race, and making his way up through the whole grid again, to now be fighting. I believe this would be for a net third and fourth with Paul Gerber. So really good comeback drive here from Stefan. Paul putting pressure, almost there, missing the brake marker. As I said, the downhill right-hander. Not an easy place to make a pass there. But I think we're going to have a nice little three-way battle developing here, Stephen. At the end of the day, going to be the guy who can keep it on the track. I think we'll see a bit of a chess match developing here. Possibly drivers letting each other pass and then, coming back in the draft again to only to pass the other driver again. So I think we're going to see a lot of position changing happening here in the last 12 minutes of this race.
Absolutely. Stephen just taking a look on the inside. Otten's trying to close down the gap. Stephen opting to stay in the tow, pull himself along, really getting close to the curb. And now it is the dreaded start-finish line straight. I think this, for a driver, beads of sweat roll down because it is one of the longest straights of this entire circuit, and you can lose your race very quickly. And there we go. Ryan Otten's just braking far too late, gets unsteady out of turn one. That's cost him the time. He's compromised at this point. Stephen knows it, lining up for the inside line. If they can get late on the brakes, trying to do so, trying to squeeze Otten's out, does so. And Paul just taking a look behind, seeing if he's trying to get a little bit of space. So, as you said, brilliant pass. But now Ryan Otten's looking to fight back. Stephen defending hard that inside line, trying to not allow anything to happen. Paul now immediately onto the back of the action. He wants to join into the fray. So this is definitely the three-way battle. Ryan Otten's now checking his mirrors, sees the mean orange machine right behind him, pushing him along, and he's watching Stephen Wessels starting to open up a bit of a gap. This is where it gets a little bit difficult. Where do you look? In front of you, behind you? Where can you go? What do you concentrate on? Do you try and put everything you can of catching the car ahead of you and compromise yourself for the car behind? Or do you go on the defense, try and hold your position, but then allow the car in front to go and get away from you? Very difficult situation that he's been put in now.
Absolutely. And I think something that we need to take into consideration as part of how this battle will evolve is the faster drivers do tend to utilize track limits quite extensively. As we see Jason Gibson spinning there at the pit exit, which is quite a difficult position for him to be in. But yeah, these drivers utilizing the pit limits quite extensively, the track limits quite extensively, and how that will play out towards the end of this race, whether we may see people incurring a drive-through.
Well, that's it. You can be sure that the pit bosses are sitting with a calculator going, "Ooh, we're not sitting with too many points left now, guys, please. Just be a little bit more careful here." And the drivers doing exactly what drivers do best, and that is give it everything they can right to the end. Taking a look at the timing ladder, though, Luke Lachese down into third place. I wonder if he got caught out with Jason Gibson, who unfortunately spun in a bit of a difficult place, trying to turn himself around. I think that Luke Lachese got caught out by that. That's dropped him down. Gerber Ferrari now into second place. Artie Nachel up into first, pitting on lap 18. So really going late into the race to try and pit. So different strategies coming on here, and how this affects the fuel is going to be a different story, I think, altogether.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it was unfortunately Luke Lachese being caught up there at the pit exit by Jason Gibson, standing in a very awkward position there. We'll have to see what comes of that from obviously the stewards, etc. But yeah, a bit of a freak incident, I think, unfortunately.
Well, here's something you don't see every day. Stephen Kernick ahead of Nicholas Manuel. I think I'm going to take a look if it's snowing out there. Nicholas, who was further up the field, now losing out to Stephen, now trying to catch up. And we know that Nicholas is one of the quicker drivers. Stephen, more of a back-end driver at this point, trying to keep his line. And it looks like, what on earth happened to Nicholas Manuel? He just dropped off the circuit completely.
I believe that may have been a disqualification due to too many incidents, unfortunately, there for Nicholas.
A lot going in the stage of Stephen Kernick there, but you can be sure that the color of the seat started changing color. The color of the seat started changing because of the sweat. Excuse me, my English tends to disappear with all the excitement. As we jump back to Paul Gerber, he's on a chase, eyeing out third place ahead of him now. He's in fourth. As we predicted, Stephen Wessels Paul Gerber, Ryan Ottens have a chance of getting into the top spots. And now this is it. Steven Wessels knows he's in third place. He needs to push hard. There's 8 minutes left. Paul Gerber trying everything he can with Ryan Ottens right behind him. You can be sure they are now cranking those steering wheels incredibly hard to try and get them into the corners. Artie Nachel, who was originally further up, now in 7th place with Johan Krobler ahead of him. So this is where it is all dire straits for these guys. You have to try and push, and you have to try and maintain. It's who's got enough left in the tank, who's got enough in the tires to be able to push themselves into those higher positions. And that's what we're seeing right now.
And I do believe I got a message now from our race control that, unfortunately, Luke Lechesi incurred a drive-through penalty when he exited the pits there in his attempt to avoid Jason Gibson. He unfortunately transgressed by crossing the solid white line on the exit of the pits. And unfortunately, yes, the game will issue you with an automatic drive-through if you go over that white line, as it is deemed a unsafe pit exit.
So can't get away with buying a pie and a Coke and pat on the back, unfortunately. Getting a pretty harsh sentence there. But that is what the nature of it is. We saw earlier on, you had Matt Densham missing the pit lane by absolute miles, also incurring penalties. And this is what happened. Steven Wessels, though, getting past and trying to make his way up. And looks like he just got around Douw Gerber at this point. Douw just opening up a line and allowing Steven to make his way past. Now, you can be sure a little bit of teammate communication had been going on between Douw and Paul, saying, listen, give me a bit of space here. I need to try and climb. Carlos having a bit of fun with Luke Lechesi. Luke going absolutely sending it by, and he's on a hard charge. Johan Krobler, he's trying to make up a bit of ground, getting a little bit closer to his teammate. But right behind him is Artie Nachel, who is absolutely on a charge at the moment, keeping the pressure on. So I think the teammates starting to talk to each other here. We go up, Stephen Catebread trying to hold back Janneman Price. These two have gone through a battle left and right over the seas, and also here back in South Africa. They are trying everything. And a bit of a rivalry that has built up between them. Paul Gerber, though, doing everything he can. He's got Ryan Ottens starting to drop off the back of him. Maybe he saved enough in the tires, and now communicating. You can be sure he's frantically shouting to his teammate in front of him, please, when we get to a corner, go wide as possible. I mean, fall off a circuit, just move. I have no time to waste here. And I think Douw at this moment is tuning onto the radio and listening to a good bit of music while his teammates is definitely sweating at this point.
And I also just received some news here that Daniel Rowe unfortunately also incurred a drive-through penalty on pit entry for his pit stop. Missed the pit entry there, transgressed by going over the white line on entry, and was also handed out a drive-through penalty. I see he's still stuck in the pits. I don't know if he has additional damage that may have caused him to unfortunately have to retire the car.
Well, as we know, you get a little bit bumpy. The underside of these cars can take a knock, and I think that's what might have happened if he missed the pit lane entry. I mean, it's a difficult pit lane to get into. If you don't practice it, if you don't practice getting into that pit lane, it is so easy to miss. And a lot of these drivers realizing that it is a very difficult thing to get into. It's the nature of the circuits. I mean, take a look at Daytona. Daytona, the guys had to try and figure out how to reduce the speed hard enough to get into the pits so they don't incur the speeding in pits penalty. And now this one is trying to get into the pits by not moving too far out. So this is where it gets rather interesting. And it looks like Daniel Rowe deciding, got the damage. I don't think I can keep going out there. Jeff Hancock's rubbing his hands. He's moved up a position as well. Ryan Ottens, though, now pushing as hard as he can. He is going and showing what the team can do. He is the only one left at this point. Well, actually, he's the second one.
And we still have Johan Krobler in the race as well. He's still up in 6th position at the moment.
Yeah, so he's got his teammate behind him, but now he is just really doing everything he can. He's catching up to the back of Douw Gerber and really pushing as hard as he can. Johan Krobler, though, he's trying to make up a bit of ground. And
A really
Ati
good battle
Nagel-
here between Johan and Ati this afternoon, I must say. This has also been a battle for the last 5 or 6 laps already.
That's it. And you can see Ati taking a big lunge, but unfortunately not close enough to make it, compromising his exit, and now getting back onto the throttle. 2 minutes and 50 seconds left of this race, and it is all on the line. Paul Gerber ahead of Ryan Ottens. Then you've got the likes of Johan Krobler with Ati Nagel right behind him. So it looks like Paul just managing to get by his teammate, and now just doing everything he can. He's hanging on. I can tell you that these drivers at the moment are going and praying for the checkered flag to come out. As you can see, Johan Krobler getting a little bit sideways. Those tires starting to show the wear down on them. And as it starts to get a little bit more slippery as they make their way around the circuit, I don't think the checkered flag is coming out soon enough for these drivers. What do you think?
And I see Douw Gerber diving into the pits there. I believe what may have happened there is due to his incident quite early in the race, he would have been refueled to a full tank. But obviously we have limited sized fuel tanks for this league. So his fuel hasn't lasted to the end of the race and having to dive into the pits there for a quick splash and dash, I think.
A splash and dash, and it's also given Stephen Kernick a chance to get around him on a Kraus as well. So definitely not something you want to have, but unfortunately it's better than running out of juice on the tank on the circuit. Stephen Catebread, though, chasing down Janneman Price. This is a battle for 8th and 9th at the moment. Luke Lachesi up into 10th place. So after having a little bit of a problem, he's able to get into that top 10 to try and keep the points. And as we take a look, Paul Gerber making his way through Stephen Kernick, Stephen having to climb on the brakes.
I believe that's Tristan Den Obriger there that had an incident and re-entering the track again. So Tristan losing the car there through that that right-hander going the downhill there.
And that's just allowed Paul Gerber to try and make up a bit of ground. Ryan Otten's capitalizing on it, getting past, and now Paul has to try and make up as much ground as possible. But it looks like Tristan's got a little bit of damage on the wing.
Yeah, and I think Johan has made up a position there by, from Tristan's mistake there into that corner. Johan has now made up a position with Ati behind Tristan Den Obriger.
That's it. So Tristan trying everything he can. Ati getting forced a little bit further back than planned. Now they're starting to close down on Stephen Kernick. And you can see how hard Krobler going and defending an inside line decides to the middle. Tristan just absolutely sending it. He licked it and sent it. And trust me, it's in the post somewhere. He managed to move up a position, but definitely a hard push into turn 1. And well done to the drivers. They're just having to decide, listen, guys, how are we going to do this? Because it can end in tears.
And
this is right
as
at the end of the race.
Krobler returns the favor there with that. And obviously there we had a bit of contact.
Blocked on the corner, and that just changed it up. But as you said, returning the favor, I think this is the receipt coming into play. And last lap for these drivers at this point.
Johan is trying there, I see a little bit of contact happening there. Oh, and unfortunately Johan spinning out there. That right-hander downhill is notorious.
It's the best place if you want to be a spectator, because 9 times out of 10 you're going to see a spin, or you're going to get some extra bits and pieces to hang on the wall. That's for certain. Ryan Otten's up into 3rd place. He's trying to give it everything he's got. Paul Gerber just trying to do everything he can. He's pretty much got 2 corners to make or break it at this point. Trying to go as late as he can on the brakes. Just not able to do it. This is very, very fast. This is all make or break for the drivers, and they all know it. As they power their way around the circuit. And take a look, Tristan has got a bit of damage on that left-hand front. He's dragging the car through, but it's not slowing him down at this point. He does not want to give up.
This is a final lap battle here between Ryan Ottens and Paul Gerber now. The camera will be moving back there quite shortly.
You got Ati Nagel getting past Stephen Kernick. He's trying to close down on the likes of Tristan Norbringer. This is points. This is what you need with the season starting to come to a close.
Paul seems to have made that pass there into the hairpin. Going defensive here into the right-hander.
Can Krobler do...
Ottens.
Can Krobler do a cut back? Oh, sorry, that's Ottens trying to do a little bit of a cutback, unable to do it. Dives to the outside, hard onto the barracks. Paul holding that inside line. He might get a bit of understeer here, just able to keep it all together. Ryan Ottens really pushing hard. You could see feathering the brake, just trying to carry as much momentum through the corners. Both drivers giving it everything they got. Paul doing everything possible, holding his line. Ryan trying to guess where can he go. Hard onto the brakes, trying to make their way through, and Ryan pulling into the pits.
Yeah.
Ryan Ottens pulling into the pits.
That's the penalties I was talking about and what impact that could have towards the end of this race. Ryan obviously incurring his 17 penalties and having to do a drive-through there, and that will drop him way down the grid, unfortunately.
That is a complete change-up, and that's allowed Tristan Norbringer just to get back into 4th place. I mean, if you think about it, it's been a bit of a chaotic race for him. He's got a bit of damage on that car. He's dragging along. Artie Nachel sees, he can smell blood in the water at this point, and it's all for the points. It's all for maximizing who's going to get the championship at the end. This is the second last race around this season of the Ferraris, and it's absolutely fantastic to see these guys really going above and beyond what they're capable of.
You're into the last couple of corners. Our race should be finishing pretty soon, I think.
But Tristan Norbringer is still going defensive. You can see battling with that front end, but just doesn't want to work with them anymore. He's having to really wrestle the car around. Artie Nachel doing everything he can. Ryan Ottens dropping way down the field. So definitely not where they want to be. Sorry, that's yeah. So this is turning into quite a race. Tristan really trying everything he can. Late on the brakes, slings it in, but also into the pits.
And that's another pit stop. I'm a pit drive-through, I assume, for track limit.
And Artie Nachel. So Artie Nachel with a big smile on his face, and what a race it is. I'm lost for words. This has been so fantastic.
So I think that a lot of the top drivers, unfortunately, have been caught out this evening or this afternoon by track limits and collision incidents being awarded by the actual platform itself. And maybe a bit of a learning experience for the guys, not to abuse track limits, thinking, oh, well, I've got 17 times I can abuse track limits, because obviously if you have incidents where there's a collision, it could eat into that balance of yours. And fortunately, I think that's what's happened here to quite a few drivers at the top front end of this race, unfortunately. Race is finished, and I think, you can just run us through the final positions there, Stephen.
So first place goes to Gerald Ferrari, followed by Stephen Vessels, Paul Gerber taking 3rd place, Artie Nachel into 4th, Ryan Ottens into 5th, Luke Lucchesi taking 6th place, Janneman race into 7th, Stephen Catebread in 8th place, Carlos in 9th place, 10th place, Tristan Norbringer, 11th, Arno Kraus, followed by Christopher Radloff, Stephen Kernick, Douw Gerber, Jason Gibson, Johan Krobler, Cameron Nell, Jeff Hancock, Nicholas Manuel, Daniel Rowe, and Matt Densham rounding out the entire field. And what a race it has been. A proper nail-biter. And you can be sure the final race of the season that's coming up, it's all or nothing. These drivers are going to lay it out all on the line. And there you go. Jason Gibson threading the needle. He's deciding to go right in between the two team heaped together cars. And nice to see a bit of team rivalry between everyone, and also friendly rivalry between the drivers. So honestly, amazing racing gone on. And wow, this has been so exciting. I'd like to thank all the sponsors. A big thank you to all of you guys, the spectators, and also we got to say a big thank you to all the officials of the Refined Racing for putting this whole league together. Absolutely awesome. I'm excited to see what happens when it comes down to the final race. And wow. So what is your thoughts of this race?
And a great race, and I think drivers of the day today, Ryan Ottens and Paul Gerber for me, really battling it pretty much the entire race. Yeah, good race, and looking forward to our final race at Okayama, traveling to Japan for that one, and I think we'll be getting some good racing there as well. Tight circuit, but generally delivers on some good racing. Stephen, I want to say thank you once again for supporting us here with your excellent commentary, and to all the viewers and the sponsors, thank you so much for supporting us, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time again. Thank you so much.
Cheers, everyone.